Alright guys, so in this one we're going to be doing the timing belt and everything that goes along with it. So I'll show you guys my process here. I already just pulled the plug wires, got all the valve cover bolts undone, and well, I thought they were out. I'm pretty sure they're out. I think they're captive in there. So I'm just going to pry the valve cover right off, and then be able to remove our timing belt cover. We'll take a look at the belt. I know it's been probably 160 since the original belt was changed, and then he said he had that belt changed at 160 and they were surprised he let it go that long, which they tend to go for a long time. These belts don't snap, these Honda belts, especially if you drive it easy, I feel like. And then he had it done at 160, now it's at 220. So we've gone another 60,000, which is the interval, so it's ready by mileage. So I'd like to see, who knows how many years it's been since it's been done. So I'd like to check the state of the belt. You never want to have a belt snap on an interference motor, which I'm pretty sure this is. Interference motor means that if the belt snaps, pistons could hit valves and you could have problems, which we don't want. So we're going to change it, and along with the water pump and everything else. Alright, so this is not what I was expecting. I pulled off this valve cover. I wanted to see what the state of the belt would be. And it turns out it looks great. Look at this thing, guys. Honda Gates belt too. It's a Honda, I guess Gates might be the OE manufacturer for Honda. We got a little slack in this side. Not too bad. That's not the side that's loaded, I'm pretty sure. This side, it's okay. I mean, there's a little slack in it, but the belt looks really good. Which leads me to believe my belt's probably too tight, and my cord, it's almost showing some signs of wear, and I hardly have that many miles on it. But I think I probably set them too tight. That's just me though. I like a tight belt. But it seems nice. It doesn't seem like it's that worn. So I think I'm gonna send it. I think I'm gonna keep rocking it. We'll go another, 20, 30, 40,000. By that time I'll probably do something to this and maybe take the head off and do some fun stuff to it. Who knows what I'm gonna do to this thing eventually. But for right now, I say we just run this belt. I'm gonna save myself the time. I'm gonna put the cover back on and reuse the valve cover gasket. But to make this not a total waste of my time, maybe we'll do valve lash while we have the valve cover off. That way we didn't really waste that much time. So I'm gonna look up the spec, look up the procedure for doing the valve lash. And yeah, oh well, kind of wasted a little time, but not too bad. Hopefully it doesn't make the valve cover leak, but we did fix the exhaust, so that's good. And we'll do the valve lash, which is probably fine too, but we'll make sure that that's good. We do have a slight miss at idle, so maybe it's a valve lash thing, or probably not, probably something else. Maybe it was the exhaust leak that was throwing off the reading. I don't think so, because the primary air tube is right here and the leak was way downstream. So I don't know what that little misfire is. Could be ignition or a little injector thing. So whatever, we'll see what we can do. I'm gonna do the lash like I said. So really all you'll need for this is some feeler gauges. No fancy tools really, just feeler gauges, which you should have if you're doing anything like this. But we got where it says up on the actual cam sprocket, facing straight up. There happens to be a mark on there too that somebody probably put. I don't think that's factory, but it might be. And then this is when we're gonna check our valve lash on cylinder 1, our 4. So we should have 9 on the exhaust side and 7 on the intake side. The intake side does feel slightly tighter, exhaust side feels looser. So let's see what the actual reading is. Let me get the feeler gauges. Basically, you want it to have a slight drag, and then you don't want to be able to fit the next size in there. So we're gonna just check and see what we got. So I did a little research, and I think I'm gonna, like I said, let the timing belt ride. I'm gonna do the valve lash while I'm in here because it does seem a little bit too tight. So I have over here on my whiteboard the specs for a D16Y8. So the intake should be 7 to 9 thousandths, which I guess the sweet spot is 8, because when these things wear, they end up going tighter. as it wears. And tighter is bad because tighter can make it misfire at idle. If the valve doesn't close all the way, you could burn a valve or something like that. You could have a little miss at idle, which could be why this car and the Accord, because I don't know if I fully understood that before. Like you're really in a range here, and tight, you think tight is good, but tight can be bad, you know? And I think this thing does only miss like that when it's really warmed up. So maybe those exhaust valves are just hanging open a little bit and we're getting a little bit of a miss because of this lash, because it is too tight. So I'll tell you guys, I'm gonna record what everything was beforehand and then adjusting, and then I'll see what it ends up being after. I'm gonna really mess with it to go right for 8 on the intake and right for 10 on the exhaust. Just right in the middle, because God forbid, you know, if it slaps a little bit, I'm fine with that. I don't care about a little bit of noisy valve train as long as it's happy and the valve's fully closing. So more important to be looser rather than tighter on these. I don't want to go for the loose spec because then it's only gonna, I guess you could go for the loose spec, but I'm gonna go right in the middle, and it should last for a while. They say like 30,000 miles, so should be good for a little while if we just go for that. So the way I'm looking at this here, I've got my different feeler gauges, and so this is the exhaust side here. So our spec on the exhaust side really should be around 10, and this is always with a cold engine here, and I'm looking at the wrong side. So we should be around 10, and I know for a fact I can fit 7 in there, but when it comes to go to 8, I can't fit 8 in there. So that means we're around 7.5 thousandths there. So 8 doesn't really want to go. So we know that 7 does fit, but it's really loose, not as tight as it should be. So we're 7.5 thousandths on this particular exhaust one, and this one we were closer to 6.5. So I can actually fit 6 in there, but I cannot fit 7 in there. So we are 6.5-ish. So that means way too tight, because you know the spec on the exhaust side is supposed to be 10, and we're at like 7.5 and 6.5. So what you guys really want here is when you look at your 10 thousandths feeler gauge, you want it to go in and have some resistance coming out, and then ideally you'd like to have an 11 as well. I know the glare is hard. An 11 that doesn't fit. So the 11 doesn't go, but the 10 does. That's how you know you're perfect. You're spot on. So just keep that in mind when you're setting it. That's kind of what you're going for. So just keep going a little bit tighter until the 11 doesn't fit, but the 10 still does. And that's pretty much setting valve lash. It's not really that crazy, but you just got to make sure that you are on the correct cylinder and you're at TDC at the right time, and you don't have any preload on any of these from the camshaft pushing down, because if you set it incorrectly, you're going to mess some stuff up. So you kind of want to make sure that when you're supposed to be up top with some lash, you have that. If you go to do something and there's no lash there, you're probably on one of the lobes of the cam, and you should re-look at how you're spinning the engine over and stuff. You're supposed to go counterclockwise. So this is cylinder 1. We're going to do the intake, and we're going to do the exhaust. I'm sorry, we did the exhaust. We're going to do the intake. I don't know why I'm backwards on this, but this is the exhaust, so we set it for 10. And the intake we're going to set for 8. So we're going to go over there and see what those numbers are. So I figured I'd show myself in real time here, doing this last one. I'm just going to make sure that you can see what I'm doing. But yeah, we're going to try. And our last cylinder is cylinder 2. So you always count from timing cover 1, 2 on these particular engines here. Most engines are like that. I start from the timing cover. So we'll try our different feeler gauges here and see what we can get to go in. I know I'm blocking it a little bit, but 7 goes in that side and this side. This side is kind of tight. 7 on this side, be a little looser. So we'll try an 8. We'll see how the 8 goes. Sometimes it's tough to manage all these different things. I'm trying to keep them all out, but not in my way. So an 8 we can kind of get, but barely in there. And this side we can get an 8 in there. So I would say our measurements for these guys are 7 and 8. And it's, you know, can't hurt it by double checking. Sometimes I go back a lot of times. So 7's kind of loose actually. So we're almost at 7.5 to 8. And then this guy's definitely a nice 8. So we're at 7 and 8. I'm gonna mark that down on the board here. And that's for our intake side, which is all we have left. So the guy that's 8, we're gonna leave because, we're gonna put the gauges down here. The guy that's 8, which is I believe this guy right here, we're gonna leave. We're gonna try a 9 in him just to make sure that it's not too big. And a 9 does not fit. So we're leaving him alone, we're not gonna touch him. This other guy here, we can get the 7 in kind of loosely. So we're probably 7.5-ish there. We're gonna try the 8 in him. And the 8 I think fits really tight. Let's see. I really can't get the 8 in there. I don't like that, so I'm gonna try to get the 8 in there. I'm gonna loosen it just a little bit, especially to show you guys. So I'm just using a wrench here, and these can be kind of tight, but you just wanna not bash your knuckles on anything, just push easily. And then usually hold this. It just loosened itself a little bit already. So what I'll try to do a lot of times is put the one in there that I wanna use. So this is an 8. So we'll see if I can get the 8 in there. The 8's in there right now. And now I'll just tighten it down. And you kind of want to get it pretty much as tight as you can with this size wrench. And the 8 is kind of loose. We're going to try a 9. If the 9 fits, then we got to go a little bit tighter. Hopefully I'm not blocking it too much here. Try to put away most of these other guys, we don't need them anymore. Okay, so let's try the 9. And the 9 does fit, so we're still a little bit loose on this guy, even though the 9's really tight. I don't need much. The 9's really tight in there. So we're just gonna loosen it up a little bit. Give it just a little bit more of a turn. Crank it down again. And then we'll try the 9 once more. 9 doesn't fit, but now we'll try the 8. And the 8 does fit. It's really tight 8, but it does fit. So if we can get the 8 in there, we can't get the 9 in there. I consider that good, even though it's really tight. It might be a little bit too tight, but just make sure we can get it in there, and if we can, then that's what it is. It's a tight 8. You know, usually you want like medium drag, but if you can get it in and you can get it out without having to unscrew it, I say that's about 8. It is tight, but it's a tight 8. So both of these are at a tight 8, and we're cranked down and everything. So we have all of the intakes set for 8,000s and all the exhausts set for 10,000s. They were pretty far out of whack. I'll show you guys the board right now. So that is pretty much valve lash adjustment, guys. It's not that crazy. Just make sure you get them good and tight when you're done. Apparently not too tight because you can damage stuff, but it'll be fine. You can't over tighten it with a little hand ratchet like that, but you definitely want to crank on it almost as hard as you can with that little ratchet. If you're a beast enough and put 2 hands on it and you break it, you're an animal. I'm sorry. Don't break it, but it should be really tight. You shouldn't be able to get much more out of it without putting some kind of different size bar on it. Anyway, 13 foot-pounds is what it's supposed to be, or something like that. You guys look up your spec. If you want to torque it, go for it. I'm just going by feel here. I know it's tight, and all that stuff's nice and tight. If I hear something clacking, then we'll know. But this is what the specs were here. This is 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so cylinder 1, we're at 8 and 7. And, you know, keep in mind, Everything for the intake is supposed to be 0.008 and 0.010 for the exhaust. So all these guys for the exhaust, which the exhaust heats up more, you know, you're gonna get more expansion out of the exhaust stuff. So this is gonna go down to probably in a bad range once everything warms up. So this is a lot closer. The intake side was not too bad, which maybe the exhaust valve seals or valve seats are worn more, causing the valves to sit higher and have less lash. I don't know what the scenario is for this, but maybe somebody knows. But it seems like the exhaust side was way out of spec. So that's how this stuff is. It gets tighter as it wears, the valve seats. So it's nice to adjust this and get your stuff running good like it's supposed to. So 8 and 10 I think are pretty good numbers to shoot for. So that's what I have everything set to. Pretty tight. I was pretty meticulous about it and I set everything correctly to 8 and 10. So one last thing not to forget is your Honda bond in the corners around the where the cam cap section is here. So there, here, and here. I might have put too much. You don't really need that much, but it'll ooze out and it should seal the corners nice and good. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw this guy on. I actually resealed it pretty good. I didn't throw the timing belt cover on. I'm toying around with the idea of just leaving it off, just because I like seeing the state of the timing belt. And I don't know, maybe I'll do that. Call me weird, but I like looking at the belt. So I think I might just leave it. And yeah, we'll go from there. Let's hear how this thing sounds, guys. I'm excited to hear what it sounds like. Let's see how quiet it is with the exhaust. And we're gonna see how the valve lash is. Hopefully it's better. Sounds good, I don't hear any noise. Make sure we don't have any oil pouring out of the valve cover. So I've always had like a slight problem with this car where if I stall it, which is not very often that it happens, but occasionally I have stalled it back when I was first learning how to drive this car. It drives totally different than the Accord, guys, and this is the first stick shift I ever owned. I put an eBay clutch in it. This honestly, I feel like I like the clutch in this better, but it took more learning curve than that to drive it. It's weird. I don't know. They're just totally different animals. But once I learned to drive this thing, I like this clutch a lot. The OE clutch, stock 220,000 mile clutch. But the point I'm trying to make is, I always had this problem where if I stalled it, it would not restart. It would just start and stall. And I wonder if the valve lash was part of it. When it was hot, it just didn't have enough to keep going because, you know, it doesn't really have, unless it's already running, it couldn't do that little restart there in the tune just because of the way the valve lash was when it's super hot. I mean, heat soaked. Otherwise, it would restart fine if it sits for a few minutes. So I don't know if that's it or what, but yeah, we'll see if that ever happens again, and we'll see overall drivability wise. It sounds like it's running pretty good right now, so I'm excited. Keep an eye on the timing belt with the cover off here, just like I like, and you know, everything is nice. I'm wondering if I should put the exhaust shield back on there. I don't know. I'm already starting to mess with stuff. I should just leave it, but I'm enjoying this car. It's very nice. I'll let you guys know what this mod did, this little valve lash. I'm glad something came out of it, taking the valve cover off. And like I said, hopefully no leaks. So yeah, thanks for watching, and peace out, guys. We'll see you in the next one.